Well, thank you very, very much, Mike and Vanaraji, for that very, very warm introduction. I'm really delighted to be with you again, if not actually at the Mid-Essex Buddhist Centre in South Woodham Ferrers after that lovely Chinese meal. I'm with you in this way, not just through technology, I'm with you in imagination, and by imagination I don't mean fantasy, I mean I'm with you in heart and in spirit. And I'm also here in the shrine room with some of the members of the Padmavajra community who were keen to come this evening. Shrine room's a bit cold this evening because it's very cold here, and it's quite interesting seeing my friends. They're all wrapped in several layers of blankets. It's quite amusing. They're over here. That's why I'm going to turn to them sometimes, all wrapped up. But I was looking at you in your nice warm room, so there's quite a contrast. And I really think it's a wonderful thing to be able to be talking to you about faith, about Shraddha, as the Sanskrit term has it. And I was here listening to Vidyadharka's talk that was given a few weeks ago, which I enjoyed very much. So I'm very glad to be part of this series, and yes, very glad to be with the Sangha in Mid-Essex again. And I want to start the talk with a story. I think it's quite important that when with any dharmic theme, that we definitely have stories, and perhaps this is especially the case with the theme of Shraddha. Because Shraddha is so much to do with emotion. It's so much to do with that deeper response. So Shraddha really has, all spiritual qualities have a lot, that are to do with people. But I think especially, perhaps, with Shraddha. So it's a story that maybe some of you have heard, maybe some of you haven't heard, but it occurred to me when I was reflecting on this phrase, which comes from Bhante, where he says from his lecture, The Stages of the Spiritual Path, where he talks about the spiral path. He says, if we want a definition of faith, we may say that it is the response, even the emotional response, of what is ultimate in us to what is ultimate in the universe, capital U for universe. If we want a definition of faith, we may say that it is the response, even the emotional response, of what is ultimate in us to what is ultimate in the universe. And when I was reflecting on that, and I know that phrase, I've probably used it dozens of times, more than dozens of times in talks, but I don't think and I've always thought, oh wow, brilliant, yeah, what a wonderful definition, but never really thought about it. Because it's actually obviously very profound. And a story came to my mind from the Pali scriptures, from the Vinaya of all places, which is the record of all of the monastic rules. But it also has lots of really good stories of the early Sangha. And this story is about someone called Anathapindika. Anathapindika, the lord and the protector of Pinda meaning rice balls, and he was the protector, the lord of those who of rice balls. What it's really getting at is that he gave food to the poor and the needy, Anathapindika. And Anathapindika was a very, very wealthy banker. He's one of the richest men in the northern India of that time. In that part of northern India, and he went to see his brother-in-law, who was also a very wealthy man, a banker. And Anathapindika went to the great city of Rajagaha on business and went to see his brother-in-law. And the banker brother-in-law was incredibly busy and really didn't have time to greet Anathapindika, which of course is very unusual in India, where a family member comes to your home, you put everything down and you greet them. But he was so busy organising his servants to cook a huge meal. Even bigger than the meal we had this evening, the 3-course Chinese meal that Padmavajra cooked for us in honour of the Mid-Essex, our visit to Mid-Essex. So he's getting all his servants to cook different curries and dals and rice dishes, special vegetable dishes, a great feast. And Anathapindika said, well, what's it for? Is there a wedding? Is somebody getting married? Because you always have a big feast in India when there's a wedding. Or even, it's so lavish. Is this for the king Bimbisara himself, the king of Magadha? Is he coming for dinner? The banker said, there isn't going to be a wedding. And it's not for King Bimbisara. It's tomorrow morning, early. The Buddha is coming with his order of monks, the monks in the area, and I'm giving them a great feast. And there was this sort of shocked silence. And Anathapindika said, brother-in-law, did you say Buddha? And the brother-in-law said, yes, I said Buddha. He said, but brother-in-law, did you say Buddha? And he said, yes, Buddha, I did say, brother-in-law. But brother-in-law, did you say Buddha? And he said, yes, I did say Buddha. And Anathapindika just said, this sound, Buddha, just this sound, Buddha, is hard to come by in this world. I want to see this Buddha. He said, and his brother-in-law said, well, you can't see him today, but early tomorrow you can go and see him where he's staying, which is in the cool grove outside of the city. And Anathapindika was just really stirred up. He's just really stirred up. He was so excited, inspired, moved, agitated, spiritually agitated, his heart beating, his hair standing on end. And that night he lay down with his awareness completely directed to the Buddha, in the direction of where the Buddha was. Hadn't met the Buddha, hadn't heard anything about the Buddha, he just heard this name, Buddha. And that seemed to be stirring him up. I mean, he probably knew that the word Buddha meant the awakened one who is awake. But somebody being called Buddha did something to him on a much deeper level. And he was so agitated, he kept getting up 3 times in the night. He got up thinking it was dawn. And he paced up and down. And he's probably thinking, Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. Just so excited and so expectant. And at last, dawn came and he went to the gate of the city. And the doors of the gated city just opened. It seemed that there were forces that were wanting to help him on his journey out. But as soon as he got outside of the city, into the countryside, and of course the countryside outside of Indian cities in those days was probably quite dangerous, probably full of all sorts of spirits and all sorts of dacoits, as they call them, robbers, bandits. And suddenly it went dark. The dawn vanished. And the darkness came, and Anathapindika felt full of fear, and was thinking of going back. This expectation of seeing the Buddha made him hold back because he was so frightened of the darkness. And you get that incredible darkness in India, where it's really dark, thick dark in the countryside, and you really don't know where you are. And a voice said, mysteriously, it was a nature spirit, a yaksha, a benign nature spirit, made a sound, and the sound came to Anathapindika in this way: 100 elephants, 100 horses, or chariots with she-mules, 100,000 maidens adorned with jewelled earrings. These are not worth a fraction of one length of stride. Advance, householder. Advance, householder. Advance is better for you, not retreat. The darkness vanished. The light appeared, so that Anathapindika's fear and terror left him. And he approached the grove where the Buddha was pacing up and down. And he knew immediately who the Buddha was. There was this, the Buddha, you have to remember, wouldn't have looked like, how we see him in the paintings with a bump on his head and, gold skin and long arms and all that sort of thing. He would have just looked like any of the other wanderers wearing, probably quite rough, deep yellow robes and his skin quite weathered, probably quite dark. But Anathapindika knew immediately who the Buddha was, the way he was walking up and down, pacing up and down. And the Buddha saw Anathapindika coming towards him. And the Buddha went towards him. He went straight towards him and he said, "Welcome, Sudatta." Sudatta being Anathapindika's name. And Anathapindika thought, well, he knows my name. He knows who I am. And Anathapindika said, "Are you well, Bhagwan?" Bhagwan being an honorific, meaning one full of all precious qualities, very devotional term that you would give to a great teacher. "Are you well, Bhagwan? Are you dwelling at ease?" And the Buddha immediately, with no false modesty, no diffidence, said, "Yes, always at ease he lives, the enlightened one, attained to nirvana, who is not stained by greed, who is cooled and liberated from the drive to rebirth, having torn up all clinging, having put away all the cares of the heart, peaceful, he lives at ease, having won the peace of the heart." And then immediately they got into communication, they got into rapport. The Buddha was immediately taken with Anathapindika. He could see Anathapindika really did see him. And gradually the communication went deeper and deeper. And the Buddha started to open up the Dharma more and more fully for Anathapindika. Anathapindika's heart was becoming, it said, like a pure white cloth that could take the coloured dye of the Dharma. All the stains, all the impurities were just being completely removed through that communication. So the Buddha could really open up the reality of things, the way things are, not just, of course, through words, through ideas, but through his very being. The Buddha, of course, being the embodiment of things as they really are. So he started to talk and communicate much, much more deeply to Anathapindika. And Anathapindika's Dharma eye, his Dharma chakshu, just opened. He started to see directly things as they really are, face to face. He gained a very clear, vivid vision, picture, which you could put into the words of everything that arises, passes away. Just continual arising and ceasing. It sounds very, very simple, but it must be so profound because it's a tremendous turning point and transformation for Anathapindika, this seeing of the impermanence, the arising and ceasing of all things, the growth and development and unfolding of, if you like, the spiral path and the falling away of the cyclical, seeing it directly, seeing things as they really are. And the text says beautifully that Anathapindika saw the Dhamma, saw the truth, attained the Dhamma, attained the truth, knew the Dhamma, plunged into the Dhamma, crossed over all doubt and turned away, put away all uncertainty and attained independently, just in himself, full confidence in what the Buddha had taught in the Dhamma. And then he just poured out his response. He just said, "Sadhu, Bhagwan. Sadhu Bhagwan. Sadhu, excellent, wonderful, glorious Bhagwan. The Dhamma, the truth, has been explained in so many ways by you, by Bhagwan. It's as if that which was upset, that was knocked over, is now standing up straight. It's right, it's upright, it's firmly established, it's firm. It's as if what has been hidden and lost is now uncovered, it's found, it's seen. Something of incredible value that was lost is now found. It's as if someone who was lost in a wilderness, is now shown the way. The way is clear. The way is clearly shown to someone floundering. It's as if a lamp, an oil lamp, were lit in the darkness, in the thick darkness, so that those with eyes can see all the forms that are there. And then he said, Buddhang saranam gacchami, Dhammang saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. He went for refuge. He committed himself fully to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. And he asked the Buddha to accept him as his disciple from this day forth, as long as breath lasts. As long as breath lasts, as long as his life lasts, he will go for refuge. Which of course the Buddha does. He accepts him as his disciple. Of course, he's the disciple, he's one who's entered the stream. He's become irreversible through that communication with the Buddha. And then, doing the very traditional thing that would have been done in those days by such a man, such a person. May you, Bhagwan, accept my offering of food tomorrow, you and your monks. So he's going to make them a great food offering. So this is the story that came to my mind in contemplating a little bit more this saying of Bhante's, that if we want a definition of faith, we may say that it is the response, even the emotional response, of what is ultimate in us to what is ultimate in the universe. And the reason why it came to my mind was that conversation that Anathapindika had with his brother-in-law. When his brother-in-law says, quite casually, I'm going to feed the Buddha and his monks tomorrow. And Anathapindika says, did you say Buddha? Did you say Buddha? And has to ask him 3 times. He's just amazed by this word Buddha. It's as if he's hearing that name for the very first time. As I said when I was telling the story, he'd probably heard that word Buddha before, because it was kind of ordinary term in the Indian languages of the day, as I believe it still is. I mean, and it was quite an ordinary word. Buddha would often refer to a wise man, one who was woken up. But there's something about the way it was said, perhaps in his brother-in-law's mouth, the way he was hearing it, what it was evoking. He was, I would say, in hearing that word Buddha as if for the first time, the ultimate in him was responding to the ultimate in the universe. Something in him was responding to the Buddha, just hearing the name Buddha, the awakened one, the enlightened one. There was some resonance, some activation, some vibration. I think probably I had, it does occur to me now that when Bhante in A Survey of Buddhism talks about faith, he talks about faith as the vibrating of our Tathagatagarbha, to use a later Buddhist term, the seed of Buddhahood within us, with the fully enlightened Buddha, as if a string on an instrument is struck. Say on an Indian veena, you strike one string and all the other strings vibrate. And I think he uses the example of Anathapindika his vibration, the vibration of his potential for Buddhahood, happens when he hears the name Buddha. Then something awakens in him. But this language of the ultimate in us, responding to the ultimate in the universe, is so interesting. It's so interesting. The ultimate in the universe. I mean, that's quite a thing to say, the universe. So obviously, it's a different conception or vision, better, realization even of the universe than the one that we perhaps are familiar with, because the universe, as far as I know, and I'm not aware of what's going on in theoretical physics, but which I gather is more sort of imaginative, but it's a very materialistic vision of the universe, whereas the Buddhist vision of the universe, the Buddha's vision of the universe, is very, very different indeed. It's not simply a physical conception. The notion of the universe is much more concerned with value. It's much, much more concerned with value because it's bound up with consciousness. We've explored the universe materially and physically, but we haven't really explored the universe in terms of consciousness, which, as far as Indian, Tibetan, East Asian Buddhism is concerned, is bound up with any notion of the universe. In fact, you could even say that all traditional cultures, traditional religious cultures, have a notion of the universe which is bound up with value because it's bound up with consciousness. So in the Buddhist idea of the universe, you get a threefold stratification at first. There's what's called the Karmaloka, that's K-long-A-M-A, not karma as in action. Karma means the realm, loka means realm, and karma means the realm of sense desire. The realm of sense desire. Now, we are obviously in that Karmaloka. What dominates the realm in which we live is our desire. It might not be always very crude desire, but it might be quite refined desire. But we are in the world of sense desire, the world of karma. It's not just human beings and animals that are part of this realm. There are lower gods, you might be interested to hear, who are also occupying this Karmaloka, and various other beings in the wheel of life, lower traditionally than ourselves. So we're in this world of sense desire, but there isn't just the world of sense desire, what we might call the material world, according to the traditional worldview. There's the Rupa Loka, which is the realm of pure form, or even archetypal form. And this is made up of various kinds of gods. Not gods that create the universe or anything like that, but beings occupying higher states of consciousness. They correspond to the dhyanas. You might be familiar with, if you've been practicing meditation for a while and you've learnt the theory of meditation, that these dhyanas are accessible to us, especially the first and second, if we regularly meditate and get on retreat. Those dimensions of consciousness actually open to us. Well, dhyana is the sort of subjective, if you like, the interior description. You could equally say, when you're in a dhyana, you're actually in a kind of heaven. You are, while you're in a dhyana, a deva. You're an angel. You're a god or a goddess. In fact, it gets a little bit blurred, god and goddess, at this level, because you're actually becoming spiritually androgynous. You're transcending masculinity and femininity on a vertical plane. You're moving into a higher state of consciousness. And these higher states of consciousness can be characterized as very blissful, also incredibly loving. There are God realms which are characterized, where the creatures in these realms are characterized by incredible love, all-embracing love. These are lower God realms, by the way. And they all have their sort of stratifications. Beyond them, even more mysterious, are the arupa. It's the arupa loka, further dhyana. So these are states of consciousness, states of being. Sangharakshita calls them the states of extremely subtle form. You could say they're formless, but that would be a bit misleading. They're states of sort of light. And again, the consciousness is highly refined, and the distinction between self and other very, very attenuated. All these states are incredibly pleasurable, and they are all mundane. Mundane in the technical sense of being part of the samsara, part of conditioned existence, part of the wheel of life. Now the point is, the reason why I'm going into this is that when you look at all of the descriptions of the universe given by great Buddhist teachers down the centuries, this is what's referred to. These Kamaloka, Rupaloka, Arupaloka. The universe is not just matter. That's the real point I'm trying to make. Woven into the whole of experience is consciousness. In fact, Buddhism will go even further and say that it's consciousness that determines being. So it's a universe of value, a universe, you could say, of meaning. And the other point that's very, very important to make is that the human personality is the microcosm of that macrocosm. That universe is inside us. I know this might sound a bit strange, but as far as Buddhist tradition is concerned, vijnana, skandha, consciousness, has the potentiality for all of those states. Our consciousness has the potential to be a god, to ascend to the level of a deva. So that means it's part of the universe. That's the universe that we occupy. So it's a very, very different way of thinking about who we are, what we are, the definition of us as a human being. What it does, of course, it expands the dignity of human life. And I think it's very, very important that we understand this. I think, very often if we look at modern analyses of the human personality, we find ourselves reduced to being a social creature, a political creature, a psychological creature, an economic creature, a consumer, and so on and so forth. And this is saying, no. They are not primary. What we are is a microcosm of this, if you like, of this hierarchical universe. Hierarchical in the best sense, in the most positive sense. But there is available to us this whole path, if you like, of consciousness to higher and higher states of happiness, meaning, of love even, where the separation between self and other starts to dissolve and lose its meaning. In the God realms, it's very, very hard to say what the difference is between self and other. But like I said, they are all mundane. They're all part of the wheel of life. That's why it can be a bit of a problem getting into a Devaloka unless you really are on the path to enlightenment. If you're not on the path to enlightenment and you've somehow managed to become a Deva, you can become very complacent. You can become very absorbed in your bliss. And of course, one day when your karma runs out, when the effects of your skillful actions run out, you'll fall into a lower state, and anything after that is going to seem like a bad place after you've been in that kind of heavenly realm. But there is, if you like, a fourth category in the Buddhist vision of the universe, which is not really a category in the universe at all. It's sort of in the universe and not in the universe, and that is the Lokuttara, the beyond the world. The beyond the mundane, what we've come to call the transcendental. So if these God realms sound extraordinary, these higher dhyana states where self and other are so attenuated, you actually feel You are in reality. No, you're not. You haven't arrived at reality. Beyond that, outside of that, is an entirely different dimension, and that is the realm of the Buddha. That is, so the ultimate in the universe is really what is beyond the universe. So not only do we have the potential for these God realms, we have the potential for Buddhahood. That which is even beyond the highest happiness found in mundane existence. There's another dimension, another possibility, which is represented by the Buddha. So Anathapindika, of course, he's done as well as anybody could in northern India. He's extraordinarily wealthy. He's a very kind and good man. He gives to the poor. He's a very, very upright man. You could say he's living perhaps quite a heavenly life on earth. But he hears the name Buddha. He hears the name the Awakened One. And it does something. It agitates him. And I think it's worth just looking into this story a little bit to see a bit more about what happens when the ultimate in us responds to what's ultimate in the universe. What goes on? Let's learn from Anathapindika. He gets impatient. First of all, there's wonder. There's wonder at hearing that word. Sangharakshita was often quoting Plato. Philosophy begins with a sense of wonder. You're wondering at the nature of things. It's nothing dry. You want to find out what the truth is. So there's wonder. That's what happens. The ultimate in us starts vibrating in relation to the ultimate in the universe. There's a sense of wonder. Wow, what is this? And then agitation. He's really stirred up. He can't sleep. It's almost like you're in love. If you remember those times when you've been really in love with someone, you can't sleep. You keep getting up. You can't eat. You're off your food. When am I going to see this person? You're sort of obsessed by them. You've got a sort of mania for them. Well, Anathapindika has a mania for the Buddha. If you like, it's a sort of it's a skillful mania. It's a skillful kind of craziness. You get this in Sufi tradition. You get this wonderful word in, I think it's a Persian word. Well, it's certainly a word used in Hindi and Marathi. Diwana, meaning that you're completely crazy for God, completely crazy to see your teacher. You're on fire, you're mad with love. Well, he's a bit like that. Even in the sober Pali canon, you have somebody going a bit crazy. They've heard about someone who has woken up, and they want to see them. They want to be with them. They can't sleep. They keep thinking it's dawn. They're so crazy. They keep thinking that the dawn has come. It hasn't. It's only 2:00 in the morning. Not that they measured time like that in those days. And eventually he goes, and that intensity of response. There's a kind of response in the universe, you could say. Non-human beings open the doors of the city. He doesn't have to kind of wake up the night watchman or something. They open. And this can sometimes happen, can't it? When you think back perhaps to when you really lived from that which is ultimate in you, responding to the ultimate in the universe. Things came into play. I remember that myself when I was getting into the Dharma, looking back. Yes, I was searching, as Mike said, at quite a young age, and various things got my mind, got my heart searching, and I'd find just what I needed. I remember going into a bookshop in Brighton. For some reason, I knew I had to find something out about Tibetan Buddhism. All the different things that were coming to me, the music I was listening to, bits and pieces that I'd heard on the radio. I thought, I've got to find out about Tibetan Buddhism. I've got to find out what this is. Went into this really good bookshop that's not there anymore in Brighton, run by these old hippies. And I said, have you got any books on Tibetan Buddhism? And thankfully, the guy running the bookshop said, you want Lama Govinda's Foundations of Tibetan Mysticism. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Best possible book I could have had. Didn't understand a word of it really, though I pretended to. But I like books I can't understand. But what I got from that was exactly what I've been talking about. What Lama Govinda opened up was, here is a tradition called Buddhism, which plots a path of consciousness, which is completely open-ended, and which you can follow through the practice of meditation. Well, yes, of course, that's what I'm looking for. I mean, I couldn't have articulated it like that in those days, but there it was. These things came to me, and other things came to me, seemingly by chance, but maybe not. Maybe that response I was happening was making things happen, as it were, around me, or I was attracting forces to me. So Anathapindika, he attracts something to him. He gets help. But then, going out, everything goes dark. Everything goes dark, and he's scared. He wants to pull back. He's had this very strong response, and then it all goes dark. I think this is an incredible symbol of what can happen to us. You know, we can have that response to the Dharma, and then suddenly things get difficult. Obstacles seem to arise. Things get really frightening. Sometimes we can sense the darkness might be, if you like, that sense, oh my goodness, I'm really going to have to change. Everything is going to change. Everything. And, you know, when you recognise that everything is going to change, and you could lose everything. You could lose everything in this. You have this dread of losing everything because you know this is going to mean real change. Everything goes dark. It's really terrifying. It's like you're scared of death. And sometimes you can feel that when you get into the Dharma, this deep primordial fear of something. And of course, it's what Sangharakshita calls the breath of shunyata, the breath of emptiness. It's that sense, yes, everything is going to change. Everything is going to change now. Or it could be that you get obstacles from loved ones or work colleagues. There it is, you found this wonderful thing, you start talking about it. You start talking about this wonderful new thing, and they can see, oh my goodness, they're going to change. I don't like that. I don't want that change. I can see they're happy, I can see they're a better person, but I sort of preferred them when they had all their habits. At least I knew what they were like. And they can really oppose you. They can make your life very difficult. And that can be very frightening because you love them so much, or because what you're involved with is so important to you. So this can be a very difficult time, and you know, you can think, maybe not. Maybe I'll pull back. And it's interesting in Anathapindika's story, again, it's not the Buddha who turns up. It's a sort of yaksha, a protecting tree spirit, a kind of daimon that inhabited the India of the day, and saying, all these, what he talks about, all the wonderful things he could have, all the thousands of horses and hundreds of horses and all the different things, they're not worth anything. Not worth a fraction compared with what just taking one stride, just advance, just one step. It's interesting, it's just got to be one step in that direction. It's not some great leap, it's just one step. Just taking that step, it's very, very powerful. And I was talking today I was doing some study today with Padmavajra, who some of you might know. We were doing some really interesting study, and we were talking about the whole aspect of spiritual life to do with protection. We were talking about the Dharmapalas, these very powerful figures, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, but you find them in other forms of Buddhism, that protect the Dharma from hostile forces. And it led us to talking about friendship and protection. That in Indian tradition, when they list the qualities of a friend, one of the first things that are mentioned, the Buddha talks about a friend in this way, they protect you. They protect you when you're heedless. They protect you when you're about to do something unskillful. They sort of gather round, in a way, bring a bit of a magic spell. And he was saying that he'd noticed in our ordination team meetings sometimes when we're talking about, maybe some of the members of the community going through a difficult time, or some of the guys in the ordination process having a difficult time, or one another, how we create a sort of protective circle around that person. And I think it's true. I think that's what really good friends do. Really good spiritual friends, really good friends in the Sangha. There's that sort of gathering around. And particularly, yes, when somebody's in physical difficulty, when they're sick or something like that, but perhaps particularly when they're really struggling in their Dharma life. And all you've got to do is just encourage them to take another step. Just take another step. Just take another step in awareness. Take another step in generosity. Take another step towards the centre. Take another step towards other people. Very often this response of the ultimate in us to the ultimate in the universe, it sounds like a big leap. Actually, it's just another step. It's that gradual movement in that direction towards the Buddha, just taking that step. So he takes the step and it becomes light. In his case, Anathapindika, and he finds the Buddha immediately. I find that very, very interesting. He doesn't have to ask any of the other monks, where's the Buddha? He knows. He knows. His faith, his Shraddha, that ultimate in him, really does recognise the ultimate in and beyond the universe. He knows what that looks like, which means, of course, that his faith is the real thing. His devotion is the real thing. It's completely authentic. There's a great saying of Sangharakshita's that, it comes from his book of aphorisms, Pieces of Fire, and it's listed not long after that quotation on faith. Genuine devotion dissolves whatever is not genuine in the object of devotion. You can't be taken in, can't be deceived. If you enter into a situation with genuine feelings, with true integrity. Because sometimes people get a bit concerned when we start talking about things like faith and devotion and that response to something higher, something greater than us. Well, might you be taken in? Might you lose yourself? Might you be brainwashed? But if it's genuine, if you're completely authentic in your response, it can't be. It can't be taken in, because it's to do with what's ultimate in the universe, what's real, what's true. So Anathapindika sees the Buddha. Yes, and he sees this really is the Buddha. This is the truth of the Buddha. He'd also, I think, see the Buddha's beauty. This isn't sort of brought out in this story, but there's a very strong connection that Sangharakshita, that Bhante makes between Shraddha and beauty. It's interesting that the word Shraddha comes from a root meaning to place the heart upon. Hridaya, the heart. To place the heart upon. Well, the heart responds to beauty. It's something so direct, and it seems that in many places in the Pali Canon that the Buddha is regarded as incredibly beautiful, spiritually beautiful, you might say. It's not the sort of physical thing, it's something that's sort of shining through, that's just very, very attractive to people, that people are really drawn to. And of course, that's because there's something in us that is beautiful. The beauty in us can respond to the beauty outside. In his discussions of Shraddha in another place, Sangharakshita recalls the saying of an old German mystic, which goes, "The eye can only perceive the sun because there's something of the sun in the eye." And it goes back to Plotinus, the great Neoplatonist, who says that we can only perceive the ultimate beauty because there's something of beauty in us, something of that ultimate beauty in us. And of course, beauty is so important in all this, because it's beauty that draws us, that fascinates us, that attracts us. We're not kept going by abstract ideas. We do need really good ideas. We do need that whole, if you like, conceptual content with that right view that is trying to describe the truth of things. But that in itself is not enough. Of course, it's enough if it's really elegant. You see the elegance of the truth, and that can really impress itself on you. But you need so much more than that. You need a person. You need a beautiful person, because you are a person. We respond so much to other people because we're a person. So we need enlightenment as a person that really, draws us. So Anathapindika sees the Buddha. And it's interesting, the Buddha says his name. Now, of course, it's possible the cynics might say, well, of course he did, because the banker told him, Sudatta's going to come and see you tomorrow. That's his real name. Or, did the Buddha really know that through his psychic powers? I don't read it like that. I read it in another way. Immediately, the Buddha sets up rapport. What he's saying, well, he knows who this person is. He doesn't need information. He sees Anathapindika's quality immediately. It's one of the tremendous qualities of the Buddha. The Buddha had this consciousness which can immediately sort of pick up on what's around, and therefore can make the teaching so appropriate, so tuned in to the person. People said that when the Buddha was speaking, even to a huge assembly, everybody thought that they were talking to them personally. He was addressing them personally. So there's a kind of intimacy in the Buddha's communication, and it's very important to remember that, these days, that I really do think that the Dharma, the future of the Dharma, is entirely dependent on Sangha. And what I mean by Sangha, the quality of communication that the Buddha has with Anathapindika. We don't get much information about it, but what the sense is of a tremendous communication, tremendous mutual responsiveness, so that the Buddha is able to open up the Dharma more and more fully, more and more deeply. And Anathapindika wants it. He's really eager, to hear the Dhamma, and he sees the truth. He sees things as they really are. He enters the stream through that communication, so he becomes irreversible from enlightenment, and he goes for refuge. He expresses it in that act of commitment to the Buddha there and then. And then that immediately turns into practical help. I'll feed you. I want to feed you tomorrow. So this is, we can learn so much from this story of the Buddha's encounter with Anathapindika, Anathapindika's journey to the Buddha. So much about faith, so much about the ultimate in us, responding to the ultimate in the universe. And we need to bring that, I think, here and now to our practice. I have in mind particularly, let's just talk particularly about meditation. That when we meditate, we need to be bringing this quality of the ultimate in us responding to the ultimate in the universe. Before every meditation, it's good to recollect the Buddha. So when you do the mindfulness of breathing, imagine the Buddha. Imagine the Buddha's mindfulness. The mindfulness of breathing is, we really do it to generate the ultimate mindfulness. The Buddha's mindfulness. The Buddha was spontaneously, naturally mindful. Enlightenment is spontaneous mindfulness. No, it's not in the reactive sense, but it's natural. Being around the Buddha, you'd be around a field of effortless mindfulness. I mean, the nearest I've come to that was being with Bhante. Being with Bhante, watching his mindfulness, his awareness. It was like a field of mindfulness, extraordinary, as if it was something that was in him and around him. And this sort of range of awareness, taking so much in, people, the world around him. I remember going for a walk with him one winter's day, down towards the river. And on this particular walk, we were walking by this wood, and right in the depths of winter, and he stopped, and he said, "Oh, you can feel nature, the life, drawing back, sort of hibernating." I couldn't feel a thing. He could. I could sort of feel it through him. This extraordinary awareness. And I could tell you so many stories about this quality of mindfulness, of this almost reverential quality of mindfulness for everything around him and everybody around him. When you do the Metta-bhavana that we're doing, it's again our response to the ultimate in the universe. We need to imagine the Buddha's loving kindness. The Buddha, again, enlightenment is expressed in natural deeds of loving kindness, whether he was walking, sitting, lying down. The Buddha was always loving. Loving kindness, metta, was always present. So we need to imagine the Buddha's loving kindness. That's the way the ultimate in us is responding to the ultimate in the universe in the Metta-bhavana. And of course, in our daily lives, in the precepts, again, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to almost imitate the Buddha, because the Buddha naturally observed the 5 precepts or the 10 precepts. That's the way enlightened beings are. They can't be anything else. So observing the precepts is not just simply a kind of, well, it's definitely not, oh, you're being a good Buddhist. It's not that. You're trying to enact enlightenment. Again, it's the ultimate in you responding to the ultimate in the universe. And we could go on in this way, study groups. Well, it would be good if we invoke the Buddha before every study group, because what we're doing in a study group is trying to see life as the Buddha sees things. We're trying to see with his wisdom by studying his words or the words of his great disciples down to this time itself. So I think I'll finish there. I hope that has been helpful. I hope you've got a sort of sense of what the meaning of this phrase, faith, we may say, is the response, even the emotional response of what is ultimate in us to what is ultimate in the universe. I hope you've got a sense of that, and I hope you've got a really good sense of a great disciple of the Buddha in Anathapindika. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.